everyone. This is Realtor Linda Peltz. Today I'm here with Chris, and he's going to tell us all about him and his company. Take it away, Chris.
Hey, thanks for having me, Linda. I am Chris Seveney from 7E Investments, and we have a very niche real estate venture where we invest in defaulted mortgage notes. So it's something we've been doing for almost a decade. I've been in real estate for over 25 years. I've worked for commercial construction companies. I've worked for real estate developers. I worked for real estate family offices. And then several years ago, I left the corporate world to start my own real estate fund. Like I said, investing in default mortgages.
Definitely. And it looks like you're meeting with some success.
Yes, we have over the last 3 years since we started raising capital. We started raising it through what's called a Regulation A plus offering that allows for accredited and non-accredited investors. So it's a little different from most offerings. We've raised close to $50 million. So I would consider that a success. And our end goal is when we're buying these loans is to try and work with the borrower on a win-win situation. Unlike some other areas of real estate, people tend to think that things are a net sum zero game where somebody has to win and somebody has to lose.
Hmm.
In these instances, we can keep people owning their property by working out new payment plans. And because we can buy these loans at a discount, it allows us to rework some of the payment plans or time frames that other banks or lenders may not be willing to do.
So what I'm hearing is they don't have to lose all their equity and be taken advantage of. You're legit and you really want to help them. That's what I got kind of out of
Yeah,
that.
correct. And one of the biggest struggles we find is sometimes like people can't get out of their own way, or they're just so used to dealing with a bank that is thinking this person wants to take advantage of me, this bank wants to take advantage of me. This is not in my best interest to try and work with them. So they get very defensive or they, try and drag things out. And one thing that I'll tell anybody in real estate is, in one aspect, owning real estate, time is your best friend. The longer you own
Definitely.
time, own real estate, the better off it is. When you are in a crunch, time is your worst enemy because interest accrues. It could be default interest. There's penalties, there's fees, there's potential legal costs. The longer things drag on, the worse it is. And it gives less flexibility and negotiating room when people, continue to drag things on.
Now, where do you get the bulk end of these? Is it something where
Yep.
banks contact you, or is it where consumers contact you and say, "Hey, I'm in kind of a crunch here," and
Yep. So it's typically banks, and they will go through companies, just like if you were selling a business, there's like business brokers,
okay.
or real estate has real estate brokers. Banks have secondary market loan trading brokers. So they'll go to a larger company that does this. They also do a lot of like M&A and business sales as well. They just have another group or division that manages this, and they know who buys these things because a bank is not going to know. A local credit union wants to go sell 10 loans. They're not going to know who buys these things in their area or who's interested. They will go to these companies who then put it out on their platform that you have to get qualified to bid, and then you can get qualified and go through that process of bidding on those assets to purchase them.
What an interesting process that I don't think the general public or uh, consumer is knowledgeable on. That,
Mhm.
just when you go get approved for a loan, right, all this stuff is going on in the background. And
Yep.
there's a chance that, I mean, I don't know what the average life for a lender is for keeping a loan, but I know they get bought and sold all the time because they change, which is another thing I don't think consumer realize. It goes to a servicer. It's not the bank or
Yep.
loan company that you're actually dealing with. It's going to
Mhm.
another company that all they do is service, and then at
Mhm.
some point it'll be bought and sold however many times, and sometimes you don't
Mhm.
even know it.
Yep. So that is interesting because a few things. One is most people have heard about private lending. That's
Mhm.
fairly common. I had been in real estate over 20 years and I didn't know this type of investing existed. I didn't find out about it till almost 10 years ago. And I had been in real estate for, decades. But like you mentioned, people don't, because it's not at the forefront. But when you buy a home, you close on it, and then it's like, okay, you have to send your payments. And usually within the first 90 days, you get a letter saying, okay, now please send your payments to this company, which two things.
Mhm.
One is that's the servicer, but usually it's a new servicer because your loan was sold. Now, depending on, whether your loan is securitized or whatnot, loans get sold all the time. And every time
Mhm.
you get a letter that says, hey, make your payments now to this company, it's because your loan's been sold. And you're right, you don't deal with the lender, you deal with the servicer. Now, one of the things I think that makes us unique and different is we use a servicing company, but we are very hands on with their servicer and manage them closely. And by doing so, they still are the face of the loan and deal with the borrower because there's a lot of licensing and regulation in regards to what you can say, who you can talk to. There's the CFPB, which people may have heard of. So there's definitely regulations you have to follow, but we are in contact on a daily basis with our servicer, making sure communication flows through the process. So when a borrower asks a question, they're not waiting 3 weeks to get a response. They're getting a response, that day or the next day.
In a timely fashion. And I'm sure there's regulations and laws. I know they are because I've done
Mm-hmm.
some of
Mm-hmm.
the course studies and different things, but
Yeah.
to answering these people. So you're right. There's timelines. They can't wait 3 weeks, and if they are,
Yeah.
they're doing something
Mm.
really wrong.
Yeah. And it's also, for example, like if my wife and I own a home, but she's the only one on the mortgage. If the bank calls, the bank can't talk to me because
Mhm.
I'm not the person even though I'm part of the ownership of the house, I'm not on the loan. They can't talk to me, even though I'm a spouse. Like she needs to give permission for me to talk to them about something on the loan. And it's things like that that people forget, and it can get you in trouble. You have to verify the person on the phone by asking them a question. So there's so much rules that you have to follow. It's just so much better off to just let the servicer deal with it.
Definitely. It sounds like it. Now, you said you're very hands-on as far as a company, not you personally, but
Correct. Yep.
um, what do they kind of do hands-on differently than maybe a different, a different investor that's picking up these loans?
Yeah. So two things that I think differentiate us within our company is we try and do as much as possible in-house. So for example, our investor relations team, if somebody wants to invest with us, they pick up the phone and call. It's not a call center. It's not somebody across the world. It's not an answering service. It's an employee of the company who knows what we provide, can answer pretty much any question. So that's one aspect. But then on the asset side of things, same thing. We have an in-house asset manager who knows every detail about that loan. And then we have an investment committee that I'm a part of, and I can pretty much give an update on every single loan. We have just under 100 loans within our portfolio, but we have multiple people who know what's going on. That then allows us to collaborate too and talk about creative ideas on how to work out some resolution with the borrower because people come from have different thoughts on things, but when you can
Hmm.
collaborate, that is so much better compared to a lot of other companies. They just leave it up to the servicer or they'll outsource that management. And if you're outsourcing it to the server or servicer and asset management, they're getting paid by the number of loans or the volume. So is it in their interest to try and get things rectified as fast as possible?
Right.
If they're getting cases closed immediately, then they stop getting paid. And, is it in their best interest?
So it almost kind of sounds like they kind of lay down the law and tell you, whereas you'll collaborate and work with the
Mhm.
the loanee, I guess you would
Yep.
call
The
him,
borrower. Yep.
borrower,
Everything.
and what works out for their situation. Because I know in real estate, being on the realtor side of it, you can sell two identical homes sitting right next to each other, and it's two extremely different transactions, and everybody has wants, needs, whatever, or there's things that went on in the background of that house where it's two very different transactions. And it sounds to me like you're willing to work within whatever's went on in there, in the background of that house and come to uh, an agreement versus just laying down the law and saying, this is the way it's going to be, dude.
Yeah. Have you ever had to
Take it
deal
or
with
leave it.
have you ever had to deal with a short sale as an agent?
I have.
And how long did that take?
There was one that I never did get closed because it was about I want to say 6 months in, and we could not get response answering, get it finalized by the bank in order to go on and close, to where the seller got desperate, right? And could no longer make payments. They'd had some kid hospital issues. I mean, finances, like you said, time was not their friend when they're in dire need, to where they had to just file bankruptcy. They couldn't wait on the bank anymore. So,
Yeah.
so we
We
lost out as the buyer.
Yeah. So we've had situations where a borrower comes to us, they're underwater and asks if they could short sale. And we always, first thing is, we'll consider it, just go get an offer. First we'll kind of get, an agent to kind of give us a value range and so forth. And we've had several that they've gotten offers on, and we typically will respond within 48 hours. So within 48
Dude, that's
hours,
incredible.
they have an answer on whether or not we would accept it, counter, or whatever process is. And I remember in the 2008 timeframe, I've had people I know who went through that short sale process, and literally it would take 6 to 9 months. And they basically be like, we uploaded docs. The bank says they don't have the docs. Then the docs are too old because they didn't
Yep.
review them. And all during that time, the borrower can't pay. The borrower's, taxes are increasing. And then all of a sudden the bank's like, no, it's too low because of all these other fees. And it's like, well, if you would have approved this 6 months ago, it wouldn't have been a big deal.
And
So,
that's exactly, you
mhm,
described it much better, but that is exactly what happened to us. And it never did
mhm,
get closed. The
mhm,
buyer didn't have a choice. They were even
mhm,
willing to throw in a little extra, but you
mhm.
couldn't get an answer out of the bank. And then the seller's
Yeah.
like,
Mhm,
we're so
mhm.
desperate, we're going to have to file bankruptcy at this point.
Yeah.
So,
So, yeah. And that's, again, an area where I think we excel is because we don't have all the red tape that we have to go through. We're a
mhm.
company, there's 8 of us within the company. We have an investment committee meeting that just reviews it. And we know going in already as well that if the borrower reaches out and says, let's just say they owe us $500,000 and they're thinking it's a $450,000 property, we already know before they even come with an offer, like, what's the minimum? Like, what's our reserve price? And then if it's above that, we're like, good, we're okay. Or if it's below that, it's like, okay, let's have a conversation on what's the best path. But in that same situation, we may just go to borrower and say, instead of that, just give us the deed in lieu. Let us
Mhm.
take the deed in lieu instead. Or there's been instances where there's been a second lien on the property, and the second lien doesn't want to play ball. And that's where we work with the borrower and say, your best option, if you want to get out of this the fastest, is let us foreclose. Just let us go through the process. And then the second can either bid at auction or they get wiped out, and, deal with it from that standpoint. But that's sometimes the best resolution to get through these situations in an expedient manner.
Nice. So, my consumers that are watching this, what would be a way that they can work with it with your company? Is it through the investment side of
Mhm,
it? Is that what
mhm,
they would do? Is, hey, I want to invest in your company? Is it
mhm,
something where consumer
mhm,
can say, hey, I want you to buy
mhm,
my loan? Is it,
mhm.
I mean, how is it
Yeah.
that you can help my consumers?
Yep. So we can't buy people's loans, unfortunately, because we have to deal with the banks, and it's almost impossible. There's 3 ways we help people out there. One is they can invest with us, and we have all the information on our website, 7einvestments.com, the number 7, the letter E, investments.com, which we provide, monthly distributions to investors. The other is if you're a real estate investor, in opportunities we do, take back properties, we are a very good source for people looking for off-market deals.
Okay.
Because, if we've got, for example, in Tennessee, we just recently or have several going to foreclosure. We take those back. We're in this space not to be landlords. We have some properties we keep as rentals, but we got into this not to own that person's property. We got in this business to try and get them to pay off. So we typically sell a lot of property as well.
So
Uh,
is that on your website under what, off-market properties or something
So we
available? Or
don't list them on the website.
okay.
People can. We have a second website that offers is the third option. Is we also provide lending to real estate investors.
Okay.
So if they're non-owner occupied, we can provide somebody a DSCR loan, which is a debt service credit ratio loan, or a bridge loan, which is a short-term fix and flip loans. We provide those as well. That information is on 7einvestmentlending.com. We keep the site separate for obvious purposes of one
Right.
is, lending, the other is for investors to come in. But those are the three main areas that within the real estate realm, if you're a other aspect, whether you're a title company or a realtor, we are always networking with those types of individuals because if I get a property that we take back in your neck of the woods, Linda, I'm going to call somebody I have a relationship with that try and list this property for me that may have the experience or a title company who's in that area as well that knows how to close deals because believe it or not, when you deal with sometimes a foreclosure, not all title companies understand what happened or what went on and they can make the process more convoluted.
Definitely. It takes a whole team in order to get this done. And I do find a lot of times on these transactions,
Mhm,
there is that one, whether
mhm,
it be,
mhm,
lack of knowledge or whatever that
mhm.
causes a ruckus. And the rest of us kind of have to be able to corral whoever
Yep.
that is. So
Mhm,
definitely, I would love to handle any of those. I have great teams put in place. So
mhm.
um, those are really good. Now, is it something where they would contact you personally, or do you just want them going through the website?
Typically have them go through the website. So we've got, if you're somebody looking for property or looking for a loan for real estate, it's lending at 7einvestments.com.
Okay.
And if you're considering investing, it is invest at 7einvestments.com. And the reason I provide those is we have, again, that in-house person on investor relations that
Hmm.
knows that side of things much better than I do. I'm more on the management side in running the company. And then on the lending side, it automatically gets added to our database where one of our account executives can reach out immediately and go through what it is you're looking for and get you an answer very quickly as well.
Very nice. Now, you said, this is more curiosity than anything. You
Yep.
said you found out about this about 10 years ago.
Mhm.
Um, how did you happen to run into it? And I'm sure
Mhm.
there's some of those people out there that's
Mhm.
interested in it. So,
Yeah. So if people are interested, yeah, then you can reach out to me. We run a small membership group as well that I don't like to use the word train, but we provide a lot of guidance and insight and show people what mistakes can be made because a lot of I'll use the term gurus out there, provide you all these marketing content that make everything seem easy. Like you can be whether it's real estate, whether it's notes, whether short-term rentals, you name it, there's somebody out there selling you something that makes it look very easy. But I actually learned initially, I found out about tax lien investing, and that was like watching paint dry and doing that. And then on a website, Bigger Pockets, the same group of tax liens had mortgage notes. And I'm like, what is this? And I just started researching it. And I spent basically 6 months deep diving into like learning about it and just understanding the documents, the paperwork, some of the laws, and really building out a financial model so I understood how to price assets accordingly because that's always the biggest thing. And what's really unique about this business is, if you had the same exact property, the same exact loan, and the borrower was behind, which I'll get that in a second. And say one was in New York and the other one was in Texas. That Texas asset would probably be worth twice. That Texas loan would be worth twice as much as a New York loan because in New York it's going to take you 5 years to foreclose, whereas in Texas you can get it done in 120 days.
See,
So,
and I don't think, people realize all the differences in the different areas, do they?
yeah,
Isn't that
they
crazy?
don't. No, they don't. And one of the last things I'll mention that people always find fascinating about this business is if somebody misses like a credit card payment or, when we were younger, I think everybody missed a credit card payment or forgot to pay it at some point in time. They're blowing up your phone, they're calling you, they're, quasi threatening you. And you think with a mortgage, if you miss a payment, like somebody's going to come knock on your door and basically drag you out kicking and screaming. I'll tell you that, the average loans we see have delinquencies that are in years. We're not talking a month or 2 months. We're talking years. I've seen loans that were behind over 10 years since they made a payment. 10 years.
Wow.
So they know how to game the system when it's that long.
Oh,
But,
yeah.
a lot of the stuff that we were buying pre-COVID was, 3 to 4 years of missed payments. Today, because a lot of money was moved around during COVID, it's probably down to about a year and a half to 2 years right now. But I still see loans 6, 7, 8 years where somebody hasn't made a payment.
Wow. Yeah, it sounds like you've seen it all.
Oh, man, the stories we could share
Oh, and I
regarding,
love it. So,
4 feet of water in a basement, an electric cord running upstairs, or a person living in there with their cats, a borrower whose the father was in prison, the mother ran off, and a 16-year-old kid was living in the house all by themselves. I mean, I could just go on and on with the stories. I had a dead borrower show up in court one time as well. So it was the son with the same name, and my attorney called me and was like, "Oh, the borrower showed up." I'm like, "How'd the borrower show up? He's dead." And the attorney's like, "Oh yeah, you're right." And I'm like, "Yeah, so who was it?" And then we had to
whoops.
find out, yeah, whoops. And but that's where like the attorney, it's like, okay, was your brain turned off today? Because we knew this person was deceased, but how did he show up? Oh
And
yeah.
see, I've seen small parts of that. I can relate to all those stories, but mine is very minute compared to some of that. It's like because just being in the industry, you see some. I know those eyebrows. You're like, huh?
Oh, it's not this. I will say one thing about what we do. It's not for the faint of heart. And
Mm,
you have to have a heart, but not for the faint of heart because there comes a point in time where there's people who are very sincere who you try and help, and there are people
mhm.
who also really are just trying to game a system. And if you let them drag things on, you give them an inch, they will take 10 miles. And that's where you just
Yeah.
have to, really, follow the laws of your contract. And it's like, you didn't pay, so I'm going to have my attorney do what's needed to be done because, we got to follow the contract.
And I've said that 3 times already today. If it's not in writing, it's not real in my world. So I
Yep.
mean, and when I get on these, like I said,
Mhm.
we have teammates, and you're
Mhm.
right. Some of it's the
Mhm.
other realtor, some of it's the transaction coordinator, some of it's
Yeah.
maybe escrow, some
Mhm.
of it's maybe I don't know where they're causing problems.
Mhm.
It's like read the
Mhm.
contract.
Yeah.
It's black and white. If it's not in writing, then it's not real. You can sit there and spout, well, I want. But if it's not in writing, it's not real.
Yeah.
So,
Exactly.
but that's terribly interesting. Well, it was wonderful speaking with you today. Everybody, make sure you subscribe to the channel so you don't miss these nice little coffee chats that we have. And this is Realtor Linda Peltz. I will catch you on the next one. My license number 01997670. Everyone have a tremendous day, and I'll catch you on the next one.